Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Following on from the massive unpotting session, I've selected 3 to do in this video. When it will get posted, I don't know. I'm using these potting mounting videos as stockpile videos for days when I either am out all day and can't film or don't want to film. So the 3 I've chosen for this session, we've got the Dendrobium rhodostictum with its nice little new growth just starting. So obviously that goes that way on the mount once I get the mount out. This is part of the plant that was split. The idea of splitting this was that some of the new growths lost their leaves in the heat wave last year, and I've tried to split it in such a way that they're not all on one plant. Because the chances are, having had such a dramatic downfall, shall we say, those canes aren't going to bloom. So their only purpose is storage organs. This shows progression from a seedling. Once upon a time it was, and even smaller ones got taken off. But there is potential for new growths to come out from the base of where those new growths were last time that have lost their leaves, which in the main is round this side. So that's not the most elegant view of the plant, but that's where the new growths are likely to come out, and then hopefully they'll grow on and these leafless ones can come off at a later time perhaps. And the other one I've chosen to do today, old bit of root, is part of the cinnamon twinkle. That's got a nice new growth on it. So I'm going to put part of it on a mount, and I may put the other part on a mount, I may put the other part in a pot. But this is the session today. 3 plants, all going on mounts. And this one, the rhodostictum, can grow into a larger plant, but it's not going to do it immediately. So I've chosen a very small mount for it. Very small. It's already got a hook on it because it's been used once. But that's the one I've chosen for that, and the idea is to place it relatively low down so that I can get most of these roots in under some moss. But the problem with the Latorias is making sure they dry in winter. So keeping all the roots covered in moss, I'm not that fussed, and chances are I'm going to leave the base free. Still got some old normal moss, not what you call it, sphagnum moss. But that would get most of these roots in some moss, so we'll get on with that one. It's the easiest, quite honestly. Where's my towel? Dry hands for mounts. Right, and it's a lightweight plant, there's no need to wire, it can just be tied on with fishing line. But I suspect I will have to put at least one bit of fishing line above the base of the plant to actually hold it upright and make sure it doesn't wobble. If I just tie it around the roots, it is going to wobble, and it will lean forward, I suspect, so we'll try and avoid that. Mount for me, if I don't put the fishing line on the mount first, I get told off nowadays, so and it's becoming a habit. I'm getting there, you know. 5 or 6 years of not doing it. It's not an easy habit to break, but we're getting there. I do tend to remember to put the fishing line on the mount first. That's a slip knot with a nice long end ready to tie off in a minute when I've done me thing. Right, no moss underneath the plant, not for me. I know others do, but I don't like it, basically. I like the idea of being able to tease the moss off after, you know, if I ever choose to replace the moss. Quite honestly, the small amount of moss that I put on the plants, if it breaks down, it's not normally covering any active roots at that point. Most of the active roots have headed off over the mount in other places, round the back and off up the front and all that sort of stuff. So a relatively small amount of moss, and that's too much already, I can see. I need to be able to see the roots through the moss. The idea is that in the winter these will dry very fast, and the moisture from the moss will not soak up and keep the base of the plant wet. It's the base of the plant that's the important bit to keep drier in the winter. They are prone to rotting. So that's enough to cover most of the roots. I'm not worried about covering all of them. And then all the fishing line is for, at the moment, is to hold the moss in place. Luckily this is a small enough affair to be able to be done with one hand, because I haven't evolved that third hand yet. I'm working on it. Right, so that's the roots secure. Now luckily, my poor little last remaining bloom, that's not going to be there much longer I don't think. What I'm going to do now is go over the top of the cane that's got the bloom on, because it's the one closest to the mount. Yeah, so I'm just going to put one loop round there, and the only reason that loop's going round there is to stop the plant leaning forward. It's now perfectly secure just by holding one cane, and it's not pinching that cane against the mount. It's holding it over a crevice. It's just holding it in place, that's all it's for. And then we'll just come back round once more so that I can get down to where my tying place is. Now as I said, if you leave a nice long end with your slip knot at the back and start winding, when you've finished and you come back to that start point, if I can get me long end out, you end up with a V, and that is a perfect place to put your end of your fishing line through to give you something to pull against. Now you've got somewhere to tie the knot rather than trying to tie it in the air, and that can make so much difference to finishing off. And then I just use a reef knot to finish off. They don't slip, or they don't tend to. Right over left, left over right. You can do it the other way round if you like, but as long as you use the same end for both knots, hence the right over left, left over right. So that's the little rhodostictum done. Latest new growth, heading slightly away from the mount, and it's an upright growing plant, so that'll be fine. It's one done. Right, let's do the Oncidium in the middle. That makes a sort of change of scenery then. Now this is trying desperately to fall in two parts, but I'm not going to let it. It is still attached. And then a lot of these what were aerial roots in the pot can now be put in some moss. So they'll serve a purpose now. Oncidium, that's going to grow wide rather than tall, so we'll have the short fat wide one this time. I think I might have to break that bit off because it's sticking out. As the fans blow the plant, you've got any jagged edges on your mount, leaves are going to rub against it. So right, and we won't forget this time. I think it's going to look. It needs to go quite low down, obviously, and point upwards. This is not a hanging upside down type plant, and the new growth that I can see pointing outwards. So about there's a nice flat piece there for that to go on. A little bit higher perhaps. Right, to get that to hang nicely, do it with your fingers, yeah? Because I've got several places I could put my hook on this, so I could put it there and have even more width for the plants to grow. But then I'd have less depth for the roots to get going. See, various choices where the hook will be, but I need it about there. So this one hasn't been used before. So where's my hole maker? And this is basically a sharpened screwdriver to form a blade, and it goes through cork like through butter with a bit of twisting. The only problem is the hole it makes is too small for a decent bit of wire to go through. So I always make the pilot hole with that one because it's got a sharp blade. Make sure it's nice and clean. And then I push a crosshead screwdriver through the hole, having already made a pilot hole, and that makes it big enough for the hook. And if you twist a crosshead screwdriver, it cuts and pushes out all the rubbish out the back. All over with clean hands. So that's the hole for the hook. Oh, that's not very good, is it? That's broken off. Do you know there's still enough left there for the hook? That was a bit of luck. There's obviously a crack in there somewhere and a piece has dropped out, but I've still got a place where the hook can go through. Goody goody. Yeah. A piece of wire here that I've used before, is that? It's a bit bendy, but it's not going to have a heavy plant on it, so we won't worry about that. We'll come in from the back. as I like my hook at the back of the mount, and then the bit that sticks out here just goes over the top basically and round the wire. It's just to stop it wobbling really, that's all it's for. And then I can point that upwards. I don't cut my hooks until I've finished messing about with the plant because I don't know how long I want the hook. Yeah, it's going to be geared up to, if I did the hook up there, I'd be doing that for a tall plant. Yeah? If it's going to be a wider plant than tall, I can have a shorter hook. Yeah? Otherwise it can take up more space on the hanging rack than you actually intended it to. But this is probably, these leaves are probably not going to get any longer than that, so that's about as long as it's ever going to get. So that piece of wire will just get bent around at the top. Right, dry hands. Ugh. Loose ends of fishing line carefully placed to one side because I've got cats. Cats love to play with anything that drops down on the floor. I've seen mine having a whale of a time with a large piece of bark that I forgot to sweep up. They've had a whale of a time whacking that all around the kitchen floor. Play with anything, and if they start playing with fishing line they could end up with it in their mouth and then it gets stuck in their stomach, so make sure you tidy up your ends. Right, we need quite a big loop this time. It's quite a wide piece of bark, so there's plenty of room for this plant to expand as it wants to. Always pays to pull it quite tight before you put it on there, otherwise you pull your knot through. And we'll just go over there, find somewhere for it to slot so that it pulls nicely. Well, it's got a curve on the back of it, so when I've finished, nearly all of the ties and loops are going to be hanging in air, which makes forming that V even more important to have something to pull against. Right, so now let's see what we can do here. It'll be just my luck for the next new growth to come straight out the back. Still, so be it. I'm pretty sure there's another new growth starting there, but there's definitely one there. That's the one I'm working with at the moment. And that looks a really pasty green colour. It's because it got found accidentally when I pulled an old sheath off. And there it was. Ooh, goodie. So I'm going to spread the plant so that it's relatively flat, about halfway up. The reason it's going halfway up, in fact it can go a little bit higher, is that the root system on this is generally speaking going to push downwards. And it will push down and go round. Yeah, it'll end up under here, probably even go up the back. But now I can do something with those aerial roots, which is what I was planning on. But to be able to do this nicely, I need to be able to let go of the plant this time. So I'm going to put my first loop around the back end of the plant, just to hold the plant in place while I mess about with the moss. I'm not going to tie that, I'm just going to hold it with my other hand by wrapping it around my finger. And then I can just hold it tight while I play with the moss. So I've got to get these roots down, so gives me the chance to get those roots down. Now this one can have quite a lot of moss on it. Why am I putting a lot more moss on this? It's an oncidium. What do oncidiums need when they're actively growing? Lots and lots of hydration. Well, you're not going to do that if it's bare rooted, are you? Because you just won't be able to water it often enough. During the growing season, when it's warm and you've got all your circulating fans on, quite honestly, a bare rooted plant on a mount is going to be dry in an hour, if not sooner. And that's not what I want for an oncidium type. I want this moss to hold on to its moisture for all of the day and hopefully some of the next day. That's my plan, so that's why it's got quite a lot. Right, now if I can unwrap that from my finger, there we go. And then we can start winding again, being very, very careful about that new growth and trying not to knock all the moss off. Ugh, get on there. Once I get one loop round, it will stay. There we go, so I've got one going round quite high. Next one can go round about there. Oh, I've got that big sticking out bit now. Oh, I go through that, I think. And then the next one can, the next one that I haven't got enough for, let's just go back a bit and see if I can get away with two. I'll put that one there, then go round low down. That's probably all I'm going to need. Then I'll have enough to tie. Yeah, that's good enough. Right, now you can see what I mean. All these loops are hanging in the air. They're not against the mount. But by having that V, where the first loop started from, I've got something to pull against. Yeah? So I'm tying against my original knot now, not trying to tie a knot in air, which doesn't always work. And then what I'm going to do with that is a little trick I do sometimes, depends if I think it needs it, is go round all of those loops, because they will not be tight, not when they're hanging in the air like that. Just pull them tight like that. Yeah? That just holds them a little bit firmer than they were before, because they always work loose when they're hanging like that. Then tie it off again. And that's the twinkle done. That's the twinkle cinnamon, that one. Or a bit of it, it's not all of it, there's another bit somewhere. Right, that's that one done. It's not bad, I'm pretty sure that isn't, oh, it is a new growth. Yep, confident. So we've now got two new growths at the front of the plant. It'll probably be a nuisance and push another one up the back. Nonetheless, it will still find its way up in round there. And the loop that went round the back of the plant is against a leaf with a bloom spike in it. So even though the leaf may die off over a period of time, the spike will give that something for that loop to hold on to until such time as the roots do the job. So that's three. Now this one's not going to be as easy. Got no decent roots on here, but I have got some just starting underneath this, I was going to say, this nice new growth that the heat ruined last year. But this is another new growth here. So this is the growing area here. So that's where the new growths are going to come from, and it's where the new roots have started from. So that needs to be the front of the plant. The old seedling bulbs can go at the back. So that's quite a tall plant, isn't it? So I'm hoping this isn't really big enough, but it means cutting a large block if I don't use this. And again, I don't need all the roots buried in the moss. This is the problem with the cork bark. See, this is a piece that was cut off and then cut down there. You get these rather abrupt cuts if you use a saw. Yeah? And it doesn't look very elegant. So I'm going to try and put the hook round at this end to make the front look curved. So that way that ugly bit is round the back and we can't see it. That's my plan. So my hook about there. That would be the thickest bit, wouldn't it? This is a real downside of the cork bark. It can be incredibly thick. Other types of trees you wouldn't have that problem, obviously, but other types of trees don't always last. You know, they have a tendency to rot down an awful lot quicker than cork bark. I've only ever had one piece of cork bark start to rot. Squeaky. Let's see if this will go through this time without cracking it. So a lot of that was me not using the sharper bits on the end of the screwdriver to do the cutting and using brute force instead. If I just turn that gently, it will take the wood with it rather than try and force it. Lovely squeaky noise. That shows it's quite new fresh bark, that's for sure. Right, I'm actually running out of my thicker wire, which is going to be a bit of a nuisance down the line. But I'm pretty confident that down in the bonsai bag in the shed, where all the spiders live no doubt, I've got some more thick stuff. This stuff is alright for some things, but it is, as you can see, incredibly bendy. And it is possible for it to bend in such a way that the hook straightens out when your plant falls down. So it is best avoided. Wrong way, come on, concentrate. Can't find the hole I've made now. Right, push the screwdriver through again. It's probably got had a piece of wood over the end of it. That will explain. There we go. Well, that's far too long, but I'll leave it for now. And this one's got to go quite near the base of the plant, base of the mount, but leave some room for some roots, and it will need a long hook when it's on its mount, because obviously the plant's going to stick up above the mount quite a lot. Why on earth I've left that root on there, I really don't know. It's well gone. Trying to keep as many as possible, really. This has not got many. In fact, it's got hardly any. So I'm wondering whether to actually mount that sticking out. I mean, obviously the subsequent growths will go upwards, but if I'm going to have it sticking out like that, it'll have to go up the other way so that the new growths are at the top, because they will head upwards as they grow. How would that look? Not very elegant. No, it's going to have to go as I originally planned, upright, that way. Yep, probably the best way. I mean, once your roots are attached, you're pretty well stuck unless you want to unmount it. So it does pay to have a good think about where you want to put it first, and think about where it's going to go next. Not just what you've got in your hand, think about what's going to happen next with the plant. Where is it next going to grow? And hopefully predicting what direction. That doesn't always work. Sometimes they have a mind of their own. They really do. And sometimes they'll push out new growths from places that are so unexpected, you can end up with a new growth in the most awkward place compared with how you mounted it, because it's not where you thought the new growth was going to come out. So you positioned your plant, what retrospectively was in the wrong place. But you can only do what you can do, and predicting where an orchid's going to grow next is not always possible or accurate. Right, again, what I want from this plant is the ability to be able to keep the base of the plant dry in winter. Yeah, that's all I'm after. Now, I don't mind if some of these older roots hang off the bottom of the mount, because they're not going to last much longer. What I'm after are the new roots being able to find somewhere to be and attach, even if their ends are hanging, as long as the main roots are attached. I've just found a crevice where that sits nicely. So what there was, see, there's a bulge here. If I'm trying to put the plant on there, it keeps trying to do that, but by chucking it down there, it will stay put. So the main base of the plant can tuck into that little crevice there, and I can use the old seedling bulbs to tie the plant upright, which is good, rather than using any of the other ones. Right. Now, again, Latoria type. I don't want loads of moss on this. I want this to be able to dry quickly in the winter. So I'm putting some up under the base of the plant, but not on it. And that's only because there's a massive hollow up under there, otherwise I wouldn't have bothered. And I've got a couple of newish looking roots there that I'd like to get in some moss. That one's gone. Again, I don't know why I kept that. Desperation, I think we call that. But that's only going to keep flicking the moss off. Now I've got to desperately try and get some moss around that root, not break it as I push the plant back. Right, that'll do. Right, I'm going to do the moss first this time, because that's where my hand is. Yeah? And I'll worry about securing the plant. Now that I can let go, I can go round. It's just a matter of changing hands sometimes. Right, that's all I need for the roots, and I'm not quite sure what that is sticking out. Oh, that's my loose end. That's supposed to be round the back. We'll try not to tie that in and then not be able to get at it. And then I'm going to go over the top of the seedling bulbs at the back to hold it in place. So that's that one and that one. And that'll be enough to hold that plant in place. And if it cuts in a little bit to those seedling bulbs, it doesn't matter. I'd prefer it to do that than the plant to wobble, definitely. And to make absolutely sure, I'm going to go round those two pseudo bulbs again near the base. If this thing will thread through. Yes, it will. That's it. Now tangle up in the roots and break those off, why don't you? Gotcha! So I always think in my mind when something starts being awkward that, you know, whatever entity is making it be awkward, you're going to lose, mate. I will get it where I want it in the end. So there's no good fighting, you're going to lose. Yes, I am mad. Certifiable. I always like what Sheldon says. I'm not insane. My mother had me checked. You have to think that through, because why did she think she needed to? Yeah, I think sometimes you have to be a bit mad to be messing around with orchids, but it's a hobby, you know. And if it isn't always perfect and always spot on, it's not the end of the world. Right, so that's that little one. That one's decided to tuck up in there. I'll move that round there. And this area here is the most likely area for the next new growth to come. The couple of new root, well, the one really good root I've got is in moss. There are signs of some new roots coming soon. And that was a new growth last year. I could get a new growth out of here and possibly over here as well. We shall see. So that, what was that? That was half of Polysema crossed with Aberrans. So that's this video. 3 little mounts. Not 3 little pigs, not 3 little bears, 3 little mounts. Rhodostictum, Twinkle Cinnamon, and the primary cross Dendrobium Polysema crossed with Aberrans. That'll do for that one. Thanks for dropping by. See you next time. Obviously I'll do progress reports as and when there is some.